Good morning and welcome. Patriot Radio News Hour. Joe and Jason on this Monday, and hope you had a great weekend out there. We're ready for the Super Bowl, right? It's going to be the Niners and the Chiefs. Yeah, the Chiefs turn it into like the Patriots, right? You're like, gosh, these guys again. And, of course, Taylor Swift, right? All the Swifties out there. All excited. Shout out to the quarterback of the night, Brock Purdy, a local Arizona product, Perry High School. Great comeback by the Niners. I was talking to Jason earlier about the Chiefs. Like, it wasn't this week, but I want to say it was like last week. There were some Chiefs fans. They got together to watch the game. The game was in Buffalo, and these four buddies, watching the game, and somehow three of them die in the backyard and are out there for like days. The guy that had them didn't even know they were out there. Everyone suspects, drugs and this and that. And I was saying to Jason, whatever happened to the good old days when, if you had a party like that, maybe you had some ditchweed and you were lucky if you didn't get a headache. Now, all of a sudden, whatever you had, just stay away. What was it? Nancy Reagan, right? Just say no. Nowadays, Jason, about anything you take, it'll kill you.
Yeah, the only kind of outdoor football I ever did was I either participated in it or maybe I went to a Broncos game. I don't like outdoor football in Colorado, and it's been cold in Kansas City, so I don't get the whole watching the game outdoors in January is just a recipe for a problem as far as I'm concerned. Last time I watching, one time we brought the TV out. It was Labor Day 2000. The Rams had just won the Super Bowl. The Broncos had their down season after winning two, so they put the Rams and Broncos on Monday night on Labor Day, and so myself and my girlfriend, going to be my wife, rooting for the Rams in the backyard of my parents' house, and they were rooting for the Broncos, and the greatest show on turf just went up and down the field and beat the Broncos. But that's the only time I can remember watching football outdoors besides participating or going to a Broncos game. And I'll tell you now, if you're sitting there almost dying at a Broncos game, someone's gonna nudge you and get you some help. My gosh,
yeah,
the guy,
I don't know.
People dying in his backyard. He has no idea, man. It's crazy.
Bizarre story. He did a Rip Van Winkle. Apparently, he was asleep for 2 days. So, maybe he was the only one that didn't make it out there. But, who knows? But, the Super Bowl's all set. The Phoenix Open coming to town. Barrett Jackson was in town. All the car guys were out at Westworld spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on their favorite classic car. And today we got Joey with us because, listen, maybe you want to do that, right? Maybe you want to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on your favorite old muscle car or whatever it may be. Joey's the guy that makes sure that you can do all those things and be prepared for what life brings you. Joey, welcome back. Always good to have you.
Yeah, it's great to be here, and happy Monday to everybody. And I hope your team won this weekend in football. I know the teams I was rooting for did not, so that was a tough weekend for me. It's a crazy time in Arizona with Barrett Jackson in the Open, and I'm excited to come back down, visit the family. But, really today, I wanted to make sure we're covering and talking about long-term health care planning. I had a case last week with a client of mine in his late 40s, and him and his wife have done just an amazing job of saving. They've got 2 little kids, and we're helping them reorganize their accounts and just be a little more tax efficient. But he had a problem come up out of nowhere, which prompted us to revisit things. His father is going through long-term health care needs, which means he needs assisted living. A nurse has to come to their place of residence. And he's like, Joe, my dad didn't do a fantastic job of saving, and it's costing me $9,000 a month just to make sure his dad is taken care of and the last thing they want to do is send him to a state facility. And he was appreciative because we have already set up his long-term health care planning, and he knows that if he ever is in that space when he retires, he's got a bucket of money there to take care of him. But I thought it was a great thing to bring up for our conversation today as we're entering retirement, and we've done such a great job of saving. I think it is very important that we have that conversation and we find some creative ways to plan for it, but also make sure that if you don't need assisted living, that money you can use while you're alive or going to your loved ones. And the way we're solving for that is just a hybrid long-term care life insurance product. And it is absolutely fantastic. I use it myself. I'm a 24-year-old, and I'm already planning for this stuff. But every dollar you're putting into that plan is either going to grow tax efficiently, tax-free for you to utilize while you're alive, guaranteed to grow historically at 6%, which is pretty unheard of, as well as having a death benefit for your loved one, but also having the ability to access the death benefit of your policy while you're alive for long-term health care needs. And right now, it's averaging people $10,000 a month. Imagine 10 years from now or 20 years from now what that bill is going to be if it happens to us. So as we sit here today, I urge everyone, as you're entering retirement, to really look at this topic and find ways to plan for it. And I can hear the break coming on, so we'll talk about it after the break.
800-951-0592. Joe and Jason, Patriot Radio News Hour. On this Monday, we have Joey with us right now and focusing. And, we know, listen, all 401ks, IRAs, tax prep as you're getting ready to retire, how important it is to have Joey in your corner. But talking about healthcare, long-term care, how expensive it is. This is a plan. My wife and I have exactly what Joey's talking about. This is exactly what we have done because in my family, we have a history of this. This has happened with my aunt, and it's something where obviously now with Alzheimer's, dementia, we don't, strokes and heart attacks, stuff like that, but it's just something where, with cancers, all those other things, if you've done a really good job of preparing in retirement. This seems to be the one thing, Joey, where a lot of people miss at until it's too late. They get too old or they get diagnosed with cancer or Alzheimer's or dementia, and once that happens, it's too late.
Yeah, 100%. It's always too late if you're solving for the problem after it happens, especially when it comes to the insurance side of everything. And I'm sure most people work with a wealth management guy, and all they're going to talk about is the investment side, but protecting and managing our risk is the most overlooked spot in terms of your financial planning. If you think about it, if you don't have the proper defense in place, how are you going to have a high-powered offense? How are your investments going to continually work harder than you if you have nothing in place to protect yourself? Because what happens is we always think life's going to be perfect. It's not going to throw us a curveball. This is the year where nothing bad happens. Usually something is going to go wrong, and a lot of people just are not planning to protect these risks, and as a result, it's tearing down their entire plan. You're selling out of your 401k, you're paying tax on it, you're selling out of your other investments, right? We want to make sure holistically that every problem you could have, we have a bucket of money solving for it. Now, yes, it's called life insurance. It's a hybrid product. It is a phenomenal tool to supplement your entire retirement plan. You got money that's guaranteed to grow. It's growing tax-free for you to use while you're alive. There's going to be a couple 2008s when you retire. You live for 20, 30 years without an income, you're going to experience some pretty bad down markets. I want to make sure that I know each and every one of my clients has something growing from 5 to 7% every year guaranteed. That's something you cannot mimic in the stock market. You want to get a 6% return, guess what? You need to return 10%, and then you pay taxes, you netted 6. It is a great piece of the puzzle. It's something that I believe everybody should have in place as they're looking to enter retirement. For those who have done a great job of saving into their 401ks or company-provided plans, this is a great opportunity to look into and look further into. It's really going to help you make yourself bulletproof as you walk away from that income here in the near future. So if we haven't talked yet, you haven't reached out, but you've been wanting to, you can always reach me at my personal cell, which is 602-909-9048. Again, that is 602-909-9048. If I miss your call, just leave me a voicemail or a text, and I will get back to you as fast as I can.
There you have it. That is my son Joey, 602-909-9048. And again, it's another, just another thing. You know, insurance has changed a lot, just like all these other investments have changed a lot over time. But this new, well, I don't want to say new, but newer hybrid product allows you to save at a great rate, leaves you money to use, takes care of those events that none of us want to talk about. And yeah, man, the cost of long-term care, it just seems like every single year, every 2 years, it seems like you got to add another $1,000 a month and another $1,000 a month and another $1,000. I mean, spending $10,000 a month on long-term care, that sounds like a fortune. That's really not, you wouldn't even call that a high-end place anymore. So give Joey a call if you don't have that, or you're like, man, I've been thinking about it. 602-909-9048 is his number. We'll have Joey back next week. But Jason, another big week here. We've got the Fed is meeting this week, so we're anticipating what is the talk about rate cuts. What's the talk about the ending of the reverse repo? What's the talk about the starting of the wind down of quantitative tightening? And then at the same time, the Treasury, Janet Yellen, they have their refinancing announcement already. There's going to be another significant increase in the size of these auctions. So, as we know, it's been a struggle. It's been something where these auction sizes, as they get bigger and bigger and bigger, it just getting harder and harder to sell these products. And so this week, we're going to get another increase in the size of auctions on top of the clues from the Fed about what's going to be happening come the next meeting, right, the March meeting and beyond.
Yeah, we're going to find out because, I'm not 100% sure what they're going to do. I don't think anyone really knows what they're going to do. I actually was watching a case. I forget the guy's name. The guy, he was one of the characters in The Big Short. The guy who was Mark Baum, but that's not his real name. But he was on one of the financial shows last week saying, "Oh, they're not going to raise the rates. It's not going to happen." He said, "Well, okay, maybe one." He said, "Maybe one." And I'm thinking, man, that is so backwards to what everybody else. Maybe it's just all cheerleading. Maybe it's just all fluff. The markets are just cheerleading for these rate cuts so badly. But he made this case. He's like, look, they're doing what they say they're going to do, and then they haven't said anything about lowering rates. They said that they could. So we'll have to see what's going to happen, Joe, for sure. I know they're going to react to things, but sounds like from his point of view, the Fed is more afraid of letting inflation get out of control and looking like the late 70s, early 80s, having a repeat of that by lowering the rates too soon. So I don't know, Joe. They can lower the rates and crash and blow this thing up and have inflation, or they can just keep the rates the same and the markets start to tumble. I just don't see them wanting to do that because of the election year. So right? What will they do?
Right. What will they do? And you're right. Everybody's all over the board. I would put it this way. Nobody's saying raising rates, right? Everyone's saying it's either the Fed's not cutting, right? That's just a bunch of wishful thinking, or the Fed's going to cut a little bit, or the Fed's going to cut a lot, right? I mean, those are the ones I think we'll probably get more talk on quantitative tightening coming to an end first. There's now people out there talking about the government data, that the numbers aren't believable, that the employment data is flawed, and that the GDP data is flawed, and that the Biden, and I don't know, Biden administration, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the Fed, what have you, that they're saying that all of these numbers can't be believed. And Jason, I think there's a lot of confusion out there. And let's not forget, it finally happened. We had 3 U.S. troops die in a rocket attack over the weekend, 34 injured at the Syrian-Jordanian border. So there's another country now, Jordan. Now they were actually, I believe, in Jordan territory. One of the Iranian-backed groups, and of course now the war drum's beating even harder. Right? We're expecting some form of response from the United States. I know there's a lot of people out there want them to strike Iran. I don't know if we will or not, but Jason, that's another factor that has to be weighed.
Yeah, geopolitical that's going to be what they point the finger at when things go wrong one way or another. So, what happens if they leave the rates alone and we don't get huge inflation? But then oil goes up crazy and the markets start to come down. And when all that starts to happen, my guess is, the Middle East starts to get heated right at the same time, just very conveniently, right, Joe? Maybe another flu season blows in late in the winter season, and they call it some offspring of the COVID, this and that, and they couple that with the war drums. It's a lot of the big wars throughout American history, the European wars, they started kind of slow, kind of like the Ukraine's just been its own thing, and then now you have Israel, and they get heated up after about 6 months to 18 months. So that the time frame of a war growing is well put for 2024, Joe.
Yeah, and it's I don't know, it's so hard for everybody to judge. We just truly are like, okay, we're looking at everything on the surface here in the U.S. I'd say things look okay, right? I mean, and you're right. I live in Arizona. Jason lives in Colorado. Maybe we live in a little bit of a bubble because we live in growth states, right? Texas, Florida, right? Maybe the Carolinas, right? In those areas, maybe the economy looks a little different than, say, California, Illinois, New York, right? Other places where the people are leaving. Let's not forget the border's a mess. Another record amount of people coming across this month, setting another record. Now the Biden administration desperately trying to get more money for Israel, Ukraine, and Taiwan with a promise to shut the border. Hey, if you spend a bunch of money, then I'll shut the border. And Jason, it's just, and it's idiotic. So essentially what the Biden administration is saying, we could shut the border, but we're not going to, right? We're going to leveraging the border as a way to get Congress to spend even more money we don't have. And guess what, though? The easiest way to do it, have some more U.S. troops die, and all of a sudden you'll see the checkbook fly open.
Yeah, the border, right? Texas. That's another one of these things, right? Conveniently, Hollywood's going to have a movie come out called Civil War about Texas breaking away from the Union. It's almost like they planned it, huh, Joe? It's almost like they planned this whole thing.
Yeah, I guess some convoy heading to the border. That's... Again, right? I love it. I think, you know what? But it reminds me of what the Canadian truckers, right? January 6th, all these people are going to end up on some kind of list. You can guarantee it. And it's an election year, right? Nikki Haley now saying, hey, if I don't do better in South Carolina, I guess I'm going to have to drop out. So we're getting real close to Trump-Biden in a rematch. And again, Jason made a great point. The last thing the bankers want to do is have the economy collapse during an election year. Because obviously they feel like, well, that'll impact the economy and factor the election one way or the other. I think that's why a lot of people are holding out hope, Jason, that the Fed's going to cut just to help Joe Biden. I don't know that. I don't know how political they are. If Janet Yellen was at the Fed, I would absolutely agree. But she's at the Treasury, and she obviously heavily influences the Fed's decisions to begin with.
Yeah. I mean, we should not have a Federal Reservist as our Treasury Secretary, but I guess since the Treasury Secretary doesn't matter, hasn't been paid a salary since 1933. Look it up if you think I'm wrong. I guess it doesn't really matter, I guess. But having someone in the government that's Fed and having somebody at the Fed that's the Fed, I guess it's kind of a vision of the future, Joe, when they put Janet Yellen in the Treasury seat, I guess, right?
Right. 800-951-0592. Jason and I, we're coming right back with more. 800-951-0592. Joe and Jason, Patriot Radio News Hour on this Monday. We're going to have the ECB, Japan's Federal Reserve already. The ECB kind of dropping hints that they may start cutting rates. When we look at the government, the GDP to the debt levels skyrocketing. And again, this week, Treasury sizes are going to increase again. But in terms of the dollar government debt, it's growing over 8% a year. This is another one. People, they just don't pay a lot of attention to, but this was the first 2% rule I remember them having. Back when Alan Greenspan and then Ben Bernanke were running the Fed, well, as long as the debt doesn't go up, more than 2%, then it's okay. A little debt's okay. 2%, right? They love 2%. But Jason, we're going to have a number this year in 2024 that looks like it's going to be over 10% growth. This is just the growth of the debt as it keeps projecting upwards. And of course the Treasury, every 90 to 180 days now having to come out and saying, well, we got to borrow even more money. It really is astounding when we look at it, because this is something where this is how everything comes to an end. Dick Bove, who's been a Fed cheerleader his whole life, he's been one of these guys on Wall Street for the last 30, 40, 50 years. He's now getting ready to retire. It's funny when they get ready to retire, they kind of start telling the truth. He basically just said, hey, I'm getting ready to retire, and oh, by the way, the dollar in its day as the world's reserve currency, it's getting ready to come to an end because they can't control spending.
Right, and a lot of those in the government and in Wall Street, they just believe as long as you can service your debt, it doesn't matter how big it is. And that only lasts until it's so big that it does matter how big it is. I mean, what was it, 10 days ago, we hit $34 trillion on the debt. Now we have another $150 billion on there.
Right.
I mean, think about that. You just take that back to 1981 when we hit the first trillion, and 15% of it just happened over the last 10 days. 10 days. I mean, what is that rate? What is that, like what's 80 days before we hit another trillion?
Yeah. I mean, listen, that's the pace. The only time that pace is lengthened is the April tax season. Outside of that, you're sitting there saying, hey, 90, 80 to 100 days, it's $1 trillion, with the exception of the tax season in April. October's tax season, Jason, that didn't go very well, and it's one of those things where the IRS is continuing to ramp up, right? Continuing to hire, continuing to track it down. And something's got to give here. This is the problem with what's been happening with all of this spending. I think we're kind of reaching that point where there's only going to be two choices, and that's going to be not only do we got to cut spending, we got to raise taxes. That's a double whammy, right? They never do either. If they're raising taxes, they're always raising spending, or they just cut taxes and let spending keep going the way it's going. It's going to be a much different picture over the next 5 years.
And we'll see. That's one of the reasons I think that they do lower the rates is because that'll let inflation go, and then those in the so-called necessity category will get the pay raises. Like I talked last week about the insurance companies just gave themselves a huge pay raise. You know, they just got together, the 10 biggest insurance companies, and just said, we're going to increase our margin on top of paying for this expense of running insurance companies. The government will do the same. And government contracted companies do the same, and it'll be those that are not in the government, which is getting to be a smaller percentage of people that have nothing to do with government. Those are going to be the people that are going to get sucked dry from the vampires. That's the IRS, Joe. You know, so they're going to spend. They're going to spend more, Joe. That's the plan. Spend more and inflate it, and spend more and inflate it. That to me means that they will lower the rates and cause that inflation, Joe.
It is I think probably the least, or the most likely scenario is in order to continue to support all of this debt, lowering the rate, because that lowers the cost, right? So remember when rates were zero, Janet Yellen, go big, spend it. It hardly cost us anything. We're going to have over $1 trillion of interest payments in 2024 alone. And Jason, when you're talking about spending jumping hundreds of billions, $200, $300, $400, $500 billion in a year. Look at what they said to us. Now, granted, it really wasn't this, but fine. They said spending went up $700 billion last year. The debt went up $700 billion, went from $1.3 trillion to $2 trillion in a single year. And the funny part was it was actually worse than that. But let's not get too bogged down in the details of it. Even bringing the rates back down, it may buy you, hey, that softens the blow. $200, $300 billion in less interest payments. That still means that the debt is still growing. You know, maybe you buy yourself a year, right? But even that trick runs out.
And I don't believe the books of the federal government or the Federal Reserve. So we also know if they want to spend more money, the Fed can just click on a keyboard and just give it to whoever needs it.
Keyboard, yeah.
Yeah.
Quantitative easing, right?
The FOIA request from 2012, when they admitted to $5 trillion in spending and it ended up being 29, and there's no idea what they're doing now. And I think that's another reason why you could have the rates stay rested and still have inflation come back, depending on who's getting the money and how it's being put into the economy, if it is. So there is that, Joe, where you can support a lot more spending if someone is just feeding accounts without keeping record of it, Joe.
Yeah, inflation doesn't go away without a crash. Just doesn't. And look at they haven't stopped spending. I mean, the government, granted, they haven't even passed a budget, but all like, well, we're going to just keep spending, keep it going, the rate it's going. And then, of course, the Treasury, they already did it in December. Now they're doing it again in January. We're just going to increase the rate of borrowing. And now, I'm positive the Fed is getting ready to wind down quantitative tightening. And Jason, what comes next? Quantitative easing, right? That always comes next. Patriot Radio News Hour. Yeah, I know, right? Where are all the green shoots? That's what I want to know. We'll be back. 800-951-0592, Joe and Jason, Patriot Radio News Hour. And again, right, where's all the green shoots? I mean, can we live Can we live? Can this economy survive with it being Apple, Microsoft, Alphabet, Meta, and Netflix? I mean, can we live on that? I mean, that's kind of what we're down to. I mean, Tesla's kind of fallen off. I guess NVIDIA, right? NVIDIA, that's it, right? They call it the Magnificent Seven. I mean, their market caps are outrageous, right? When you look at the Dow, yeah, okay, 38,000. But if you chop off those 7 companies, right, it's a much different picture out there, and all of the things that we keep talking about, diversification is going to be the key. That's why you got to have your gold and silver put away today. $10 liberties today, $1,095. Gold's up 10, 2026, 2027. Silver's up 35 cents, approaching 23 and a quarter. $10, $1,095. 2 10s. $50 less than a 20. You buy 10 or more, $1,085. That's 2 10s, $70 less than a $20 gold piece. A half ounce of gold, the old private gold. You know how we like it. 800-951-0592. That is your toll-free number. Put that physical gold and silver away. And after you do that, check out our friends at Y-Refi. I mean, think about it. We had Joey on this morning talking about being diversified, using an insurance product to get 5 to 7% returns annualized that you can use later on for like long-term care and things of that nature. And then Y-Refi, you can get up to 10.25% and do some good out there, not correlated to the stock market. Doesn't care about the debt, doesn't care about the Fed meeting this week. You can turn your income on, you can turn it off, you can compound it. They have no fees. They never attack your principal, ever. Heck, now they even let you keep some of the interest if you got to end early. Be diversified here. I think that's going to be the big thing, especially, and not just this year, because I know this year looks pretty chaotic. I think next year, after the election, it's probably going to get more chaotic, in my opinion. But it's going to be we're in a much different phase here. This spend. We're going to spend our way out. It's coming to an end. They always worried eventually the size of the debts become too big. Getting something with these fixed rates of return, that's really going to be appealing in the future. Check them out. InvestYRefi.com. That's the word invest, the letter Y, REFY.com, or just call them. 888-Y-REFI-24. You guys know you got to have a minimum of $50,000. You can use an existing IRA. Some of you may be able to use your 401k. But Jason, I said earlier, where's all these green shoots? Right? Can we just survive on a very small handful of companies to lead us through all of this? And at the same time, the decisions that we're talking about, none of them are appealing. None of them are a sign of strength. And it just seems like Congress, they can't get their act together. They already know, right? The gig is up. The thing is how long can they go before the rest of us realize it?
That's exactly right. I mean, I've seen it here locally, Joe, that these policies, that if you look at the average, news show, mainstream media, things seem all right. They're talking about how the unemployment is low and this and that and the GDP, and they're talking about how great things are. But with our business, Joe, and with other businesses people that I know, there's a huge slowdown. The average guy with the average money that's feeding the economy with things that they need, whether it be appliances or this or that, or people buying gold and silver, the small guys are just evaporating. The money that the small guy has to continue to move their financial fortunes forward is come to a halt. It's just come to a halt. And it's going to come to a halt with the medium-sized players and then some of the large players. And here's another thing, Joe. You talked about a market crash, which I don't think the market's going to crash very soon, but it is going to crash. And you know it's going to crash maybe at the end of this year because the biggest players that buy stocks are all selling. Jamie Dimon selling, Warren Buffett selling, the Big Short, Michael Burry, he's sold all his stuff late last year. They're selling their stocks because they know stocks, they're going up. Well, because they get that the FOMO, the fear of missing out people, when they see it going up, they're milking you like a cow to get into the market right before things go haywire, Joe. It sucks to be the guy that jumps in when it's going up, because you think you need to jump on it. It sucks because they bait so many people in. That's that peanut butter jar thing I always talk about. They have all the peanut butter. They take it out first. That stuff that was stuck to the side all those years that you earning your money and trying to get ahead, you threw it in the peanut butter jar at the last moment, and then here comes the spatula. That's them collecting it and taking it from you. Just wiping it clean, Joe.
And we talked about this the last week. The numbers out now. The 10% own 93%, and really the 1% own almost 90% of the stock market, right? The other 9% own a little bit, and then everybody else, your 20, 30, 50, 100,000, 200,000. You think you got a 401k with 3, 4, 500,000, you think you've done great. Yeah, you're just a fly in the milks. Not even that, right? You're a speck of sand on a beach, right? That's really what it amounts to. Patriot Radio News Hour, final segment coming up. 800-951-0592. Patriot Radio News Hour wrapping up this Monday. $10 gold Liberties, 1866 to 1907 half ounce. Private government hallmarked, U.S. government hallmark gold, 1,095, 10 or more, 1,085. Just a huge savings. It's been this way for a while, almost going on a year and a half, maybe 2 years. Where 210s, getting so much less expensive than 20s. It's great. Normally when you get that fractional material, right, it gets more expensive, and the lower you go, the more fractional you go, the more it costs. It's just this great opportunity in the $10 market, and that's just because I'll be honest with you. The big hitters, the guys that do, hey, I'm going to do $1 million, $5 million, $10 million all in one order. Jason, they don't care about the fractional, right? They're just talking about, hey, give me the most I can that takes up the least amount of space, and they just buy all 20s because they don't care. Hey, I don't care about saving 50, 60, 70. It's not enough for me to worry about. I'm more worried about space, and this is kind of why we've had this run where 10s are just less expensive.
And it doesn't really matter a whole lot what you get. It's about how many ounces you put in your pocket.
Right.
But if you can get 10s, get 10s. If you can get 20s, get 20s. We have specials every day because that's what's coming cheap to us. So that's what we put on the air. But you can go to allamericangold.com, order anything off our website. We'll sell you whatever's there. But when we put a $10 Liberty on sale on the air, that's a great place to start. If you're starting, if you're somebody that's been ordering for a while, this is a great place to continue, Joe. It's about stacking. It's savings. Obviously, savings works better when you got more. When you have less savings, there's less you're protected. There's less you can do. When you have more savings, you can do more. What do you think all that 401k and all that other nonsense that people do to try to save for the future? It's a confusing space, but gold and silver is pretty easy because gold and silver does not crash to zero. Gold and silver is not going to have an 80% price crash. It's not going to happen. It just takes too much time and effort to pull it out of the ground, and that's what your price is coming from. There's a physical labor to pulling more out of the ground for the increasing amount of people that are on this planet. So, and that's the way it works, Joe.
Yeah, 800-951-0592. It's going to be a busy week, like we said. We've got the Fed meeting starts tomorrow. The announcement Wednesday afternoon. We have the Treasury refinancing. We have jobs. So it's the end of the month. So we'll get another look at some jobs data as well. And then not to mention the foreign central banks, the ECB, Bank of Japan, and getting an idea of where we are. I think the biggest thing is, Jason, I think that they've realized whether or not the inflation's under control, not under control. We're going to say that it is because I think they realized rates couldn't go any higher. Right at that point, right, they kind of reached the maximum amount of pain. The banking industry was buckling, commercial real estate, which is already going to buckle, and housing. It's a little better. But I mean, think about, we're talking about housing sales back to 1995. There just wasn't any way. They can't fight inflation anymore anyway. And now everyone's talking about, well, when are they going to go the other way? And I think that's really the only debate that's left. Right? When are they going to go the other way?
When are they going to go the other way? Absolutely, Joe. Absolutely.
800-951-0592. Jason and I, we got Steve Mitchell coming up on the Half Empty Cup. You're not going to want to miss it. We'll be